Our carbon footprint. It's the amount of greenhouse gases we humans release to the atmosphere, and a lot of it comes from our energy use. Let's meet 6 families from 3 countries in very different parts of the world. All use energy and all have a carbon footprint. Representing the post-industrial world, from Prior Lake, Minnesota.
Hi, we're the Presslers.
We're the Langs from Howard Lake, Minnesota.
From the rapidly emerging economies.
Hi, we are the Handa family from New Delhi.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lata Sharma. I'm from New Delhi. This is my family.
And from the developing world.
I am Amin Morris. I live in Moyoka, Cameroon. Here is my family.
Hi, I am Anumdem Nicodemus. I live in a Kata village, Moyoka subdivision here in Cameroon. This is my family.
6 families, 3 countries. What do their carbon footprints look like? And what does managing carbon emissions mean for them?
Funding provided by the U.S. Department of Energy's Office of Fossil Energy, the National Energy Technology Laboratory, and the members of Prairie Public.
The comforts of life in the post-industrial world are available at the flick of a switch and turn of a key. Right now, most of that energy comes from fossil fuels, which release greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. The amount of greenhouse gases released from human activities is our carbon footprint. The carbon footprint of the post-industrial world is large and relatively stable. In other places around the globe, economic development and quality of life are catching up, and the global carbon footprint is also growing. Scientists are concerned that more greenhouse gases in the atmosphere may trigger unfavorable changes to the Earth's climate. Nations large and small, industrialized and developing, are looking for ways to have energy without increasing carbon emissions. Many actions will be needed, and new technologies will play a major role. Households make up a big part of the picture of energy and carbon around the globe. Understanding that picture will help us play our part in shrinking our carbon footprint.
Dividing whole numbers by mixed
We've
fractions.
chosen 6 families to represent daily life in post-industrial, emerging, and developing nations. They all share a comfortable lifestyle in their own countries. We will see the types and amounts of energy they use and how much carbon they release to the atmosphere. Let's start with the Lang family in rural Minnesota. It's morning in Howard Lake, a small town west of Minneapolis.
Come on, do you like the swamps? Time to get up.
Troy, Susie, and their sons CJ and Chase live in a comfortable 4-bedroom house outside of town. Like most American families, Troy and Susie both work outside the home, and the kids spend the day in school. Troy works at a local business. Susie is a flight attendant. By 7:30, they will all be out the door going their separate ways. Half a world away, in New Delhi, India, the day starts as commuters pour into the city. In the Honda household, Preeti fixes breakfast as her husband John, his grandmother, and his mom get ready for the day. In this city of 14 million, housing is at a premium. Shobha Honda, a widow, shares her 7-room apartment with her grown children and her mother. Preeti and John ride together to their offices. In the shadow of Mount Cameroon, the households of Akata village greet the day. Several times each month, Mariana Mendham is up before dawn to prepare a lunch that will be shared with the neighbors at her farm plot. Daughters Vivian and Kinesia lend a hand. Mary and her husband Manu share their 6-room cinder block house with 3 of their grown children and 3 grandchildren. In the early morning, the children are sent to the stream to fetch water and bathe. By 7:30, the children leave for school, and the adults begin chores or head off to their farm plots. As we meet the rest of our families, let's pay more attention to their energy use. In the bedroom community of Prior Lake, Minnesota, the energy meter is running even before Troy and Tricia Pressler start their day. The water heater is at work long before Lakin turns on the bathroom light and plugs in the iron. Energy helps put breakfast on the table, The fridge, the toaster, and coffee maker make the meal, and the dishwasher will handle most of the cleanup. Troy, an engineer, is taking some time off for classes, so he spends the mornings hitting the books and caring for Sterling. Tricia, a real estate agent, works flexible hours around Troy's schedule. After breakfast, Lakin will catch the bus to school, and Tricia will drive to her morning meetings. In the Sharma's 3-bedroom apartment in Delhi, the fish tank bubbles, the fridge hums, and the fans turn through the night. Cisterns filled by electric pumps hold tepid water for son Sharad's morning routine. In the living room, Atul Sharma performs morning devotions. Varun takes a call from a classmate while his mom prepares breakfast. Lata Sharma uses the gas stove to fry battered paneer. The maid cleans up from last night's dinner. She commutes to the city by a train. After breakfast, Lata, a doctor, will give son Varun a ride to school on her way to her clinic. In Moyuka, Cameroon, De Rosa Amin uses the kitchen fire pit to prepare breakfast, plantain and potatoes from the family's plantation. No need for early trips to the stream. Energy brings the family's water to a spigot outside their home. The energy in their 4-bedroom home comes from the crackling fire and a handful of electrical outlets and lights. Visiting relatives and friends join De Rosa, her husband Morris, and their 5 children at the morning meal. With no refrigeration available, eggs gathered daily are eaten or sold. Dried milk and sugar flavor their tea. After breakfast, the children will leave for school and Morris will hitch a ride to his plantation. What kinds of energy do the different households use? How much energy do our family's households consume? And what about each household's carbon footprint? Households use energy for light, power, heat, and transportation. In America, that usually means electricity, natural gas or propane, and gasoline. Power in the home generally means electricity, everything from toasters to telephones, lights to computer screens, and it makes our lives easier. At the Lang and Pressler households, the refrigerator stores a week's worth of food, saving shopping time and effort. Electricity in the laundry room makes clothes washing a quick chore. And everyone with a fan or air conditioner depends on electricity to keep their cool in the summer. Electricity brings clean water from the treatment plant and from the well. Long ago, electricity eliminated the need for household help in middle-class homes and gave us more time for leisure.
What the heck? You made me jump!
The carbon footprint of electricity comes from the way it's made. Generating electricity using nuclear energy, hydroelectric dams, wind, geothermal, and solar doesn't emit carbon dioxide. But most of the electricity in the United States, 70%, is made by burning fossil fuels, mainly coal, which is plentiful and affordable. Burning fossil fuels also generates carbon dioxide because of its carbon content. For the Langs and Presslers, about 1/3 of their energy use is electricity. Electricity makes up nearly 2/3 of the household's carbon footprint. This is because most of their electricity is made by burning coal, which contains more carbon than any other fossil fuel. The Honda and Sharma families in New Delhi live in a world in transition. Better access to electricity means their compact apartments are being wired for modern appliances and 21st century electronics. Electricity powers the fans that bring relief from the year-round heat. Both households have a washing machine. Still, some laundry is washed by hand. Neither household has a clothes dryer, but the tropical climate makes hanging clothes an effective option. Dishes are washed by hand and air-dried. Affordable human labor still handles most household chores. Abundant coal deposits supply over 70% of the electricity in India. For the Sharma and Honda households, electricity accounts for about 20% of household energy. Because most of the electricity comes from coal, it makes up nearly half of the household's carbon footprint. The Amins and Anumendams live in a world that is just gaining access to energy. electricity came to Okata in 2008, replacing kerosene lamps and bringing cell phones, televisions, and a refrigerator for the local pub. In the nearby city of Moyuka, the Amon family has enjoyed electricity for a few years, but the service is expensive and not everyone can afford it. Electric pumps bring water to homes and neighborhood taps. The high electric rates mean people use the energy sparingly. The Anyamendems wash small loads of laundry at home and carry larger loads to the stream. Dishes are washed by hand after every meal. Mountainous Cameroon is blessed with many rivers and waterfalls, some of which have been tapped to make electricity. This means that while electricity accounts for 3% of the energy use in both households, it adds nothing to their carbon footprint. Another use of energy is for heating. In America, that means natural gas or propane, which often fuels the furnace, the water heater, and clothes dryer. In many homes, these fuels provide the energy that cooks the meals. The Langs have a propane range, and the Presslers have a natural gas cooktop. They also have propane grills for backyard cooking. But the single largest use of energy inside an American home is for heating and cooling. Like 2/3 of U.S. households, our families use natural gas and propane for heating. Natural gas and propane account for about 1/3 of our family's energy use. But because they contain the least amount of carbon of all fossil fuels, natural gas and propane account for less than 20% of our family's carbon footprint. The Hondas and Sharmas cook using a mixture of propane and butane called LPG. The LPG gas comes in a cylinder and is attached to the cooktop just like gas grills in the US. The cylinders last about 3 to 6 weeks depending on the season. About half of the urban households in India use LPG. The other households still use kerosene cook stoves or wood fires. Families buy cylinders of LPG from local vendors. In this tropical climate, water for chores and personal use is heated by the sun in rooftop tanks. Because Delhi has cold weather only a few weeks a year, homes do not have furnaces. For our families, these cooking gases account for 6% of the household energy use and 4% of the carbon footprint. Heating is not a concern in tropical Cameroon, where the temperatures are hot year-round. LPG is expensive and rare outside the cities, but wood and crop residue are common and are used by 90% of the population. The biomass fuel is gathered by the family or purchased in the market from a woodcutter. Like fossil fuels, plant materials contain carbon, and carbon dioxide is generated when they are burned. Our families use fuel from young trees and seasonal crops. Unlike the carbon in old-growth forests, the carbon in these plants was recently absorbed from the atmosphere. Scientists say that burning this type of biomass only recycles the carbon. It doesn't add more to the atmosphere. As a result, they do not count the carbon from seasonal biomass fuel in the carbon footprint. This biomass fuel accounts for 60% of the energy used by our families in Cameroon, but does not add anything to their household's carbon footprint. The other major household energy use is for transportation, brought to you by gasoline and diesel, refined from petroleum. Since the time of the Model T, personal transportation has defined America. Over 90% of American households have a registered driver and a personal vehicle. Every week, the Langs commute 260 miles back and forth to work. The Presslers commute about the same to work and school.
Okay, let's get in the car. Let's go get the girls for basketball.
Tricia shares driving duties for after-school activities with other parents in the neighborhood. Commuting, plus trips to the grocery store and other errands, adds up to about 1,100 gallons of gasoline per year. All this driving accounts for the last third of our family's energy use. Because carbon makes up much of the gasoline, transportation is about 20% of our family's carbon footprint. Trains, buses, taxis, and rickshaws make up the mass transit that is widely available in India. For personal transport, it's the motorbike. Only 1 in 25 households in India has a passenger vehicle, but the number of cars is growing rapidly. Most cars and motorbikes run on gasoline, creating a serious smog situation. Compressed natural gas, CNG, is used in buses and taxis in the city to help reduce pollution. The Hondas share one vehicle to commute 30 miles per day through city traffic. John drops Preeti off at her office and then drives to his. Shobha Honda uses a CNG taxi to go to work each day and for errands. For the Honda family, vehicle use accounts for about 75% of the household energy use and half of the carbon footprint. For the Sharmas, the number is even higher. In Cameroon, transportation is mostly by foot and motorbike. Cars are expensive to buy, operate, and maintain. Gasoline and diesel are at a premium. Neither of our families owns a vehicle. Marianne Umendum and her neighbors walk up to an hour and a half along the roads and paths to her farm plots and carry produce back the same way. Morris Amin's plantation is 15 miles from his home. He and his workers hitch a ride to go to work. He hires a truck to transport his harvest. The children walk to school. Because rides are shared, the families don't use much energy for transportation. Transportation accounts for about a third of their energy use, but the fossil fuel used for the vehicles makes up the household's total carbon footprint. Our families share a comfortable lifestyle in their own countries, but the economies of their countries are very different, and so is their access to energy. In the post-industrial world, the amount and types of energy our American families use is in the range of families in Canada. It's a little higher than the other post-industrial economies of Japan, the European Union, or Australia. A big part of the difference is transportation. We're much more spread out. Still, energy use in our American households is fairly typical of the 15% of the world's population that lives in post-industrial economies. So what is the total energy used by households in the United States? To get an idea of the amount, multiply the Lang's energy use by 110 million households. That comes out to be about half of the energy used in the United States each year. What about the rest? The other half is used in our schools, at our jobs, to provide health care, to produce goods, and for the many services that define our modern lifestyle. When you add up all the energy used in America, it comes out to about 20% of the world's energy use, and we use that energy to produce 25% of the world's goods and services. Altogether, the post-industrial economies are using a little more than half the world's energy, producing 70% of the world's goods and services, and putting out half the world's carbon. Energy demand in these countries is stable or growing slowly, and their carbon footprints are doing the same. India is in the middle of an economic revolution. Its demand for energy is surging. They use the same types of energy as our American families, but on a smaller scale. No heating, less driving, and fewer and smaller appliances. Energy use in our Indian households is about a third of what is used by our American families. This difference is reflected in their carbon footprints. Right now, India uses 4% of the world's energy to produce 2% of the world's goods and services. India's carbon emissions are the 5th largest in the world. But India is not the only country with a rapidly growing economy. China's economy is growing even faster than India's. China's carbon emission levels passed those of the United States in 2005. As their economies grow, China and India will use more and more energy. And now we come to our families in Cameroon. They represent the emerging middle class of the developing world. Their energy use is low, 15% of what our American families use. Most of their energy comes from renewable sources, and that means that their carbon footprint is less than 4% of ours. With respect to their carbon emissions, Cameroon is at the same level that the United States was in 1843, at the onset of our Industrial Revolution. But with access to modern energy and communication, they already have one foot in the modern age. The carbon emissions for our 3 countries reflect the stages of global economic development: post-industrial, emerging, and developing. In 1930, today's post-industrial countries put out almost all of the world's carbon dioxide emissions. Today, global emissions are 7 times larger. We now contribute only half, and India and China emit more than the entire developing world. Right now, only 1 in 6 households in India has the access to energy enjoyed by our middle-class Indian families. Most of the rest use kerosene, wood, or dried cow dung for cooking fuel. They travel by cart or motorbike and cool themselves in the shade. They emit very little carbon. As India's economy continues to grow, electricity and other forms of energy will come to the rural areas. If we continue to use fossil fuels without doing something to control carbon dioxide, the world's carbon emissions will double again in 50 years. If we want to avoid that, we need to have energy without emitting carbon. What does that mean for our way of life? In the post-industrial world, we've spent the last 200 years learning how to harness fossil energy to improve our quality of life and economic productivity, and we've become pretty good at it. Are we going to give up all the benefits of modern living? Probably not. But there are many actions we can take to check the increase of CO2 in the atmosphere. Energy efficiency and conservation, using different energy sources, capturing and storing carbon emissions from fossil fuels, keeping carbon in the forest and in the soil, soaking up more of the carbon already in the atmosphere. And scientists say that every one of these options will be needed if we are really going to make a difference. Households will need help to make big changes in their carbon footprint. Society can break the connection between carbon and energy and help the rest of the world to do the same. Let's look at 3 actions that society could take to make a difference for our families in the United States. The first is carbon capture and storage. 70% of our electricity comes from fossil fuel power plants. The carbon released in making this electricity happens at the plant. By reducing emissions at the source, the electricity would have a low carbon footprint when it arrives at our homes. In carbon capture and storage, or CCS, CO2 is captured instead of being released. The CO2 is then injected deep underground where it remains in permanent storage. If we equip new power plants with CCS technology, we could make a big impact on CO2 emissions for households and all other electricity users. The carbon footprint from electricity at home served by these CCS plants would shrink dramatically. China and India are rich in coal reserves, and they are building hundreds of new coal-fired plants. Carbon capture and storage is a technology that China and India could adopt to reduce their carbon emissions. The same kind of reduction could be accomplished if we greatly expanded the role of nuclear for generating electricity. Expanding wind and solar power could also provide a portion of electrical needs, especially for peak loads. However, we would have to increase the use of wind and solar many times over to make a significant impact on carbon emissions. Both personal and mass transit could benefit from using low-carbon fuels. Electric vehicles are one example. As long as the electricity is carbon-free, the vehicle will be too. Technology can make a difference in transportation too. American vehicles get an average of 21 miles to the gallon. Increasing efficiency is the #1 way to make an impact on transportation. When our cars get 60 miles a gallon on average, we will cut today's household carbon footprint. Energy efficiency is not just for transportation. Codifying the latest energy efficiency techniques in appliances and building construction can help households use less energy. That could have a big impact on heating, cooling, and electrical costs, and on the associated carbon footprint. Households in the post-industrial world have enjoyed the benefits of plentiful energy. Households in other countries around the world are tasting these benefits and are hungry for more. The Langs and Presslers want their children to enjoy the same lifestyle as they do. In India, John and Preeti Honda dream of starting a family in a home of their own. Lata and Atul Sharma are saving to send their sons to college and into professional careers. In Cameroon, Maurice Amin dreams of the day when he and his son can have a truck so they can transport his workers and expand his farming operation. Mary and Manu Anyumendum work to send their children and grandchildren to college so they can have a better life. Energy is a key to prosperity around the world. The ultimate goal is to have more energy while releasing less carbon. Societies will find the means to achieve this goal. Families and individuals can start now.
Funding provided by the U.S. Department of Energy's Office of Fossil Energy, the National Energy Technology Laboratory, and the members of Prairie Public.